Mics are hot, and we're back. Anybody's ever had a scanner at a NASCAR race, I had to do that. It's my favorite part of NASCAR scanners is when they come back from the commercial. Mics are hot. Mics are hot. But this is Life in the Fast Lane. I am Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, right here on WagerTalk TV. And I'm joined by my two NASCAR co-hosts and experts, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, and Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. And their mics are hot as well. I'm excited about the show this week, guys. This is the most excited I've been about NASCAR in quite. We have the dirt track, Bristol, Tennessee, this Sunday. But as always, there's always some rain on our parade, it seems, nowadays. And it looks like it will be washed out Sunday. A lot of rain Saturday evening and all day Sunday. So most likely this race will take place Monday, but we're going to handicap it nonetheless. Before we do so, though, let's quickly recap last week's race at Atlanta. It's another mile-and-a-half track. And, of course, a lot of the races, a little less than half because we have more road courses this year, but still a large majority of the circuit are these intermediate speedways. And so I think it's important to take a deep look at Atlanta last week so we could have some handicapping advice for the future. And Rocky, let me start with you. Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. How did it go for you? And what was your big takeaway? Of course, Kyle Larson led over 200 laps, but Ryan Blaney passed him late for the win. Rocky, what was your takeaway of Atlanta?
Yeah, our 6 different winner in 6 races this year. Ryan Blaney came on strong at the end to get the win. Kyle Larson dominated all day, but faded a little bit at the end there. Personally, I had Kurt Busch over Eric Amorello and Christopher Bell. It was 2 easy winners going. Kurt Busch had a very strong car. He was running top 5, possibly had a car that could have won the race. And Kyle Busch, his brother, spun tires on a restart. Denny Hamlin got in the back of Kurt. And out of all those cars, the driver that I picked hit the wall and was out of the race. So tough start for me this year. 2-5 this year overall with NASCAR picks. I'm now 94 and 57, 62% the last 3+ years with all my NASCAR picks. That kind of stuff happens, but it just seems like it's happening a little bit too much this year so far in the early going. Probably should be like 6-1 if things go like they're supposed to. Just a tough day for me. I was very frustrated, hoping to rebound here in Bristol.
Yeah, and I always say don't trust the market. When someone has a long-term edge like Rocky, you just play consistently. You catch those occasional drawdowns. But when someone has a long-term winning percentage of overs, like around 65% the last 3 years, they're off to a choppy start. But as Rocky said, could easily be 6-1. It's really just been some bad luck. He's not handicapping these races wrong. I don't want to say this is the time to jump on board because you never know for sure, but it seems to me like this is the time to jump on board and have a little extra confidence in backing Rocky because he knows what he's doing, and he's gotten some of the bad beats out of the wheel because those things do kind of happen, good and bad, during the course of the season. So, yeah, Rocky, I think you're looking at stuff the right way, and I think these results are going to come in for you more so than not here in the near future. Once again, Rocky's best bets for NASCAR each and every week at SportsMemo.com. And then, of course, Andy Lang is at WagerTalk.com. And Andy, as I mentioned, Kyle Larson dominated the race. He won stages 1 and 2, a driver rating of 145, which is almost near perfection, but finished second overall. Blaney led only 20 laps. Hamlin led 27, actually, and finished 4th. By the way, Larson led 269 officially. That's how dominant he was. But once again, Kyle Larson's a guy we're going to talk about a little bit here with the dirt track coming up. He's the favorite, but he's been great on these intermediates as well. Ryan Blaney's been fast for over a year now, but Andy finally found a way to win a race and not get into trouble late. Any other takeaways from you from Atlanta?
Yeah, I finally had a fortunate race where, the bad luck we avoided, and that led to a 3-0 week. We had Hamlin over Elliott, Truex over Harvick, and Stenhouse over Briscoe. So most of those were no sweat throughout the race. Kind of had the opposite of Rocky. And yes, it is the perfect time to get on Rocky's picks. Like, you can't handicap these picks any better. So the results will get there for sure. So, yeah, obviously the biggest takeaway, Kyle Larson, again, looked great. I do have to say, I did have a couple times during the race, I was wondering, why is he running that hard when he's that far ahead? And we see it in NASCAR. You can lead too hard. You can run out your car. You can overuse the brakes. You can overuse the engine. And so many times we see guys fade if they lead too many. That's why I remember last year, the infamous DraftKings prop where a driver to lead stage 1 and 2, but it's really hard to lead stage 1 and 2 and win the race because you have to be dominant the entire time. And we saw that again. A couple times I thought, why is Larson running so hard? And it's just like you get out front and you want to run. And then at the end, your car falls apart. So a couple of other takeaways. Alex Bowman looked great again. He is just flying under the radar. I think he's going to get a win at some point soon. And then I got to point out our guy, Ricky Stenhouse, he finished 12th again. His last 4 finishes in NASCAR are 12th, 11th, and 13th. Why is that important? Because when I'm betting on head-to-head matchups, I want to see consistency. I want to know what I'm going to get from a driver. So when you're seeing these head-to-head matchups with someone like Ricky Stenhouse, and he's matched up against Ryan Newman or Chase Briscoe or Austin Dillon, I can look at these 1.5 miles in Phoenix and I can say, okay, I know about where Ricky Stenhouse is going to finish this year because he's showing a clear record of it. So following guys like this and seeing the consistency out of some of these, tier 2 or tier 3 drivers is really important. From a betting perspective, it was one of the bigger takeaways is Stenhouse very, very consistently between that 10th and 13th finishing position.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. There's a handful of guys, the wily veterans, if you will, that are always just consistently top 10, even with lesser cars. We talk about Harvick, Keselowski, Kyle Busch sometimes. They just find a way to be in contention. And that's what makes guys like Ryan Blaney so tricky is it's hit or miss with him. He either wins the race like he did or he finishes outside the top 10 like he's been doing recently. Chase Elliott's fallen into that category a little bit, guys, as well. He finished overall 38th in the race and was only 8th after stage 1. Got to quickly talk about Harvick, though. We said this at Phoenix a couple weeks ago, and then we said Atlanta, 2 of his best tracks. But he cut the tire early, correct? I think that was Atlanta. I get Phoenix and Atlanta mixed up. But so he was behind early, but the bottom line is he finished 10th, never even top 10 in stages 1 or 2. So he's another guy that did push his way back up, but never was in contention here. So we got to be really careful with Kevin Harvick here in the near future until we see something. Speaking of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., though, Andy, before we move on to track at Bristol, let's get to the Stenhouse Unforced Error Award. And as you said, he's doing all he can to make sure he's not one of the nominees this year. And he's been running very clean so far. We got it up on Twitter, on a YouTube poll, rather. So be sure to check each week, fans, for your chance to vote here. We had Noah Gragson and Derek had the big fight after the Xfinity race on Saturday. We have Anthony Alfredo, who seems to be in the mix every week. We might have to rename this award and get a Ragu pasta sponsorship or something from Ragu Sauce. But he spins on pit row, and it really wasn't even comical. It was very dangerous. He basically did a 180. The fact he didn't severely injure the pit crew that he almost hit was remarkable. He stopped right next to the guys. And then actually this was my nominee early when I was watching the race. I'm glad you guys caught it as well, was Kyle Busch on the slow restart. That's what caused that big bottleneck and took out some key drivers early in the race. And Elliott did get caught up in that, I believe, as well. So once again, a very tight poll last I checked. Andy Lang, I'll throw it to you for the official winner for this week's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Unforced Error Award.
I was so bummed that the fight didn't win because the fight was hilarious. Hemrick tries to come up and interrupt Gragson when he was doing an interview. Bad idea. Apparently, Gragson has been in a lot of fights because he got into position and threw a couple of haymakers. Hemrick's like, whoa, dude, I didn't know we were going to fight. So he gets pulled away by a pit crew member. He gets his hat knocked off. So he fixes his hat and walks away with his tail between his legs. I thought it was great. Couple honorable mentions. When the announcer at the end says, look for the drivers to come in the pits with 50 laps to go, 59 laps, everyone comes in. So great analysis there. And then I don't mean to laugh at kids, but they show a kid in the stands dancing with a Chase Elliott shirt on. Then they cut to Chase Elliott's engine blowing up. They cut back to the stands. All the Chase Elliott fans sad. They're disappointed. They're wearing their masks. It was just disappointment at its finest. I am eliminating the Anthony Alfredo because he was a foot away from crunching several guys. That was about as dangerous as it gets. Yeah. So the winner has to be Kyle Busch spinning his tires. And like Kurt Busch said, they're in the middle of the race. Why is everyone plowing into each other with whatever laps to go? It was completely ridiculous. And then He ends up wrecking his own brother, cost Rocky 2 easy bets. So yeah, the spinning of the tires and then veteran drivers running into each other when there is absolutely no need. It's not like it was the end of the race where it's like everyone's like forcing their way to the front. So I thought it was pretty easy. I thought it was Kyle Busch spinning his tires and end up wrecking his own brother.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I voted on that as well. And it was 39% to 38% Alfredo. And the only reason I didn't vote for the fight was technically the Xfinity race, so it was the race weekend, but that was a damn good one as well. And yeah, I love the fact when one guy's like in the MMA position, the other guy realizes right away this is a bad idea. And Andy's MMA Takedown live show knows all about that. But yeah, another thing quickly before we move on to Bristol about the reason these guys race so hard now, I think the stage racing has a lot to do with that. And it does lead to some more havoc, earlier in the race. These guys want to be top 10 for points earlier in the race than they ever would have cared about in the past. So you got to wonder if that's part of it. Before we go, a quick reminder, Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, myself, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com as well. Get our best bets for all different sports. Rocky and I specialize in baseball and basketball along with NASCAR. Andy Lang is the prop master. NBA, NHL, what was it, a 20-5 run last I checked going into yesterday, I think, Andy, on your NHL props, just incredible moneymaker. And I talk about diversity and balance. Add all three of us to your arsenal. Pick three. Take advantage of those specials at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, and you're going to get a wide variety of sports and options. Props, NASCAR, basketball. It's hoops for me, number one this season at WagerTalk.com. I've got a six-pack for March Madness for Saturday and Sunday loaded right now. Rocky's got NASCAR best bets at sportsmemo.com along with basketball. Andy, of course, has NASCAR and Formula One he's throwing. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. You're getting a bonus this week. You're going to get Formula One and NASCAR from Andy Lang. I know a lot of the viewers have been asking, are you going to do F1? And I also want to point out our good friend Kevin Dolan at WagerTalk.com as well is doing Formula One this season. He's got a season special up right now at WagerTalk.com. So those of you that like F1, be sure to check out WagerTalk.com. Both Andy Lang and Kevin Dolan have some Formula One as well, NASCAR, basketball, everything else included at WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com. Guys, let's get to the race I'm excited about here. I just wish the weather was going to be a little more predictable. Practice sessions in jeopardy. The race Sunday definitely in jeopardy. It looks like it'll probably be Monday at best. I don't know exactly how long it takes to dry out a dirt track. I got to be honest. I've been to dirt tracks before, but I've never seen dry out. And I guess you could put the blowers out there. I would assume if it's too muddy, you can't, though. And it's going to be interesting. Let's take a big picture look, first of all. Hey, look, track history. We obviously don't have any dirt tracks. It's been over 50 years since NASCAR Cup Series has done this. Bristol is a short track. It's a half mile along with Martinsville. Bristol is extremely banked, so I really don't use Martinsville much as a comparison. My home track, Richmond, is 3/4 of a mile with a little bit of banking, so it's kind of a mix between the two. We've talked about Dover, a 1 mile concrete track that has high banking. Bristol is also concrete, but of course this weekend it is not. So Rocky, let me start with you. Just what's your big picture takeaway on how you're going to handicap this race? There are certain drivers, as we know, that have a lot of dirt experience and expertise. Is that kind of where you're looking at this one?
Yeah, we have so many unknowns for this race. I mean, first time in forever that NASCAR Cup is raced on dirt. I've seen a lot of drivers quoting different things about how they feel it's going to go, and they all have different opinions. When I think dirt track, I think, okay, when we're going into the turn, they're going to be sideways. But everything I'm reading, it don't seem like it's going to be that way. It seems like the cars are going to be, the weight of the cars are going to hold them down. They're not going to be sliding that much as I thought. So I'm going to be definitely looking to see how the qualifying races go and see who does well there. I think they got some practice going on. I want to check that out. I do think you might have to look at past Bristol results. I mean, although it's not on dirt, these results, they were on the regular track. It's still the same track, minus the dirt. And got to look at short track results as well. Some drivers are better on short tracks. Some drivers are better on, the 2.5 miler. You also have to check in to see who has past dirt racing experience. Seems like the dirt track guys that seems everybody is talking about: Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Christopher Bell, maybe even a Chase Briscoe. So definitely going to be looking into that.
Yeah, and Andy, the odds makers haven't been sleeping on this information. Those names that Rocky just mentioned, if you're looking at the future odds are the top. The season began, the two guys I had circled as dirt experts were Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. I kept telling people, they're going to definitely get a win this season because one of them will probably win this race. Little did I know that we wouldn't have to even go more than a few races into the season for them both to get wins. Kyle Larson should have won again last week, as we mentioned. Could easily have 2, even 3 wins this year. Christopher Bell wins the second race on the one road course type track we've had. So these guys have better than expected already. We knew both of them were play-on drivers this year. Larson's extremely talented in a Hendrick car now, Bowman's car from last year. And then, of course, basically Jimmy Johnson's car from it is now in Johnson's. And then, of course, Christopher Bell's in the 20 car in a Gibbs car now. So we knew they were going to both have strong seasons, but they both are dirt experts. Andy, we'll look at some drivers, throw one out if you want to, but more importantly, I want to hear your big picture takeaway on how you're handicapping this race. Is it a mesh, like Rocky said, of some dirt experts and also past experience at Bristol?
I am kind of taking a little bit of everything. I mean, we had a lot of unknowns and then we add in rain. So it's unknown on top of unknown. I wrote down some dirt. Well, I didn't write it down. I typed it down. I wrote down some dirt track quotes from some of the drivers this week. Eric Almirola said it should feel like Martinsville or Richmond. I don't buy that for a second. Ryan Blaney said it's going to depend on how much water they put on the track. That's funny. Alex Bowman talked about how he has raced some dirt tracks in the ARCA series. Chris Buescher talked about how they got rid of the splitter so you can bump and bang a lot without damaging the front. He expects a lot of banging into each other. Kyle Busch said Larson, Bell, Reddick, and Bubba Wallace should shine. Remember, Bubba won Eldora in 2014 racing for Kyle Busch's team. Kevin Harvick said he's going to be at a deficit as to what line to take. He sounds confused. Eric Jones not happy about this race. He wanted the regular Bristol because he likes the short tracks. I thought the most interesting, Kyle Larson said this is not like the regular dirt tracks, the sprint tracks. And he said Christopher Bell is the most talented driver on dirt he's ever seen. That's monster praise. And then my favorite quote, Martin Truex, Bristol has been our worst track. Why the heck not lay down dirt and see what we can do? Honesty at its best. So he's like, well, we can't do good on pavement. Let's just throw down some dirt. So I don't think there's a whole lot you can take away from it's a crapshoot for sure.
Yeah, there's some takeaway for me, though, the Kevin Harvick quote, because I mentioned earlier how Harvick has not shown us anything. He's underperformed drastically on his good tracks. So on a track where Bristol really has not been one of his best to start with, not as dominant at least as Phoenix or Atlanta, where he didn't do much. And then if he doesn't like the dirt, plus I think the young guns are the guys that have been on dirt more recently. So if Harvick did race dirt, it's been 20, 25 years, And the other thing, too, is I think how much water they put down by Blaney quote is very telling, though, because if it's a really dry track, I do think they slide more. If it's a little damp, if they water it down, it's more like concrete. And the fact that we know we're getting a lot of rain Sunday, I don't think it's going to be a dry track Monday. I think it actually races more like a normal wreck. So I'm almost thinking the rain means we can handicap this a little bit more like a normal Bristol. And once again, guys from the truck series always seem to do well in this type of setup. They usually have more dirt background. Bubba Wallace was a good truck driver. So, and I'm not talking about a future career when it doesn't pan out in NASCAR. He was a good truck series driver. But Rocky, give me that you're looking at here maybe as a top three. Bell seems to be kind of the popular choice along with Larson. In fact, Larson he's like 2.5 to 1. Bell's like 5 and 5 to 1. So we're talking about very short odds on those two. Yet Larson said Bell is the best, and Larson is saying this isn't like a normal dirt. So hard not to like Christopher Bell, but Rocky, who's someone you're looking at as a top three?
Well, I want to go over your top 5 drivers to win according to the odds. Like you said, Larson's the favorite to win at plus 250. Christopher Bell's in second at plus 550. Austin Dillon third at plus 900. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is at fourth at plus 1,000. Chase Briscoe plus 1,200 is coming in fifth. Some other notables, Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick are both 25 to 1 to win this race. Joey Logano, 33-1. Brad Keselowski comes in at 40-1 odds to win this race this weekend. One guy, you got to look at is Kyle Larson. When we think dirt, I think Kyle Larson right away. He's one of the best drivers on the circuit now. He does have some dirt racing experience. Larson's the hottest driver over the past 3 races with a 3.3 average finish. He has 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s in his past 4 races here in Bristol. Average finish of 7.3, which is 3rd best among all drivers. So definitely, Kyle Larson's good and he's hot. Definitely want to be looking at him this weekend.
And what's interesting, Rocky, is I know where you're getting those odds that you quoted because I look at them as well. It's what you and I would probably consider the sharpest offshore book for NASCAR now that one of the others is out of the market this year. And I like to compare sometimes the sharp odds with the very public U.S. sports books. Christopher Bell is at plus 550, as you mentioned, offshore. I'm seeing him at 6 and 7-1 at some of the big public U.S. books right now. So you could say there's a sharp lean in the futures markets on Christopher Bell as we do this Friday evening. Yet Kyle Larson is shorter at those public books. So, Andy, I'll throw it to you. Give me a guy you're looking at. The other thing I'll throw out, those odds are really tempting on guys like Keselowski, Logano. I mean, guys, can run well at Bristol. And if there's so much unknown here, this is kind of like a Daytona race for me. I'm always trying to find a reason to take some long shots. And if the track ends up being firm, if it gets really wet and it's hard and it races like a concrete track, we're going to be like, man, we handicapped this way too much like a dirt race when it doesn't turn out that way. So, Andy, I mean, we'll get to some long shots as well, but who's someone you're looking at, your general thoughts of that concept?
I'll give shout out to some guys who we will never mention ever again on this show. And if this is a true dirt track where the rain gets them and this is muddy and slick, I'm going to look at these dirt track ringers, and there's 3 of them. There's Mike Marlar, Chris Windom, and the last guy is Shane Golobic. These are guys that race in the Outlaw Series. These are reigning USAC midget champions. And if this race gets messy, all bets are off. It doesn't matter what team you're driving for. There's no advantage in your car. It's all about driving on these dirt tracks. And I'm looking at some of these guys, and somebody like Golobic, he's a reigning champion. He's plus 250 to finish in the top 10. Talk about an advantage with bumping and protecting your car. These guys know how to do it. If a guy like Mike Marlar is going into a turn against Martin Truex, I got Marlar to come out ahead of that battle. If this race gets really dirty, I think these 3 guys are going to make some noise. I bet one of them finishes in the top 10, if not 2. If this race gets really messy, look for some of these guys at the end of the race where you're like, who is this guy? A lot of value in DFS or fantasy lineups to throw some sleepers out there. Remember the days where they used to bring those ringers into the road courses. Boris Said used to do it. Allmendinger would come out of nowhere and win a race on a road course. So this has all the makings of that. And when there's a lot of unknowns, expect the unexpected. So I'm looking to play one of those 3 guys top 10.
Yeah, and Andy, I'm so glad you brought that up because one thing that we saw over the years, it's really been over a decade. We don't see the ringers as the road courses because they really didn't fare too well, the one-offs. And a lot of it had to be the fact that they weren't on good teams. They bring the ringers in on teams that don't have a good driver to start with, and they didn't have the horsepower, the pit crews to get it done. But you mentioned those 3 guys. Marlar's about 28-1. Shane Gobbick's 40-1. Marlar's 33-1. The lowest is Chris Windom at 28-1. But there's one other guy we have to mention. He's a full-time truck racer, but he's actually 6th. Rocky quoted those 5 odds. The 6th driver overall, that sharp book, is Stuart Friesen at 14-1. And he's a Canadian dirt specialist who races full-time in the truck series. So the market is saying that's your ringer if you want to call him a ringer because he is a truck racer, but he's not a Cup regular. That's the guy actually that might surprise a lot of people. And that's a name we definitely won't be saying again on the show this year, most likely. Rocky, who's some other guys you're looking at? Any long shots, any favorites, where you want to go with it?
I think you got to look at Kyle Busch here. He has 8 wins here in Bristol, 14 top 5s, 19 top 10s, 31 races here in Bristol. Average finish 12.8 at this track over the past 3 years here in Bristol. He has 2 wins, 5 top 5s in those 6 races with an average finish of 5.3 during that time. So I'm gonna be looking at Kyle Busch, and I'm hoping the track will play similar to when it's paved as it is when it's dirt.
Yeah, and this is a guy, last year Kevin Harvick's the guy this year, but Busch was the guy last year without a question that just underperformed. And we kept talking about having, no practice sessions hurt him more than other drivers. But then again, Andy, that might not be the case this week because they are supposed to have some practice. We'll see how much of it, we're able to use. But we have practice scheduled for the first time all season at any track here. So, and everyone's on an equal foot basically. Have never raced on dirt here before. And then you give some practice to a Busch. So I think that is another handicapping factor. You take guys I consider the best drivers, and Busch along with Larson, and Busch does more with practice info. Any other kind of track time he can get. I'm seeing him as high as 16-1, Rocky. So that's a pretty good price for a guy like Kyle Busch, who has been dominant at Bristol over the years. 5 top fives in his last 6 races here, 2 wins out of 6, best driver rating overall the last 3 years. Andy, who's somebody else you looking at here for Bristol? I mean, anybody on the board, like a name like Kyle Busch, that you think's maybe a little underpriced now?
Potentially Alex Bowman, based on his quote about racing in the ARCA series. Those are heavier cars. He said he hasn't raced a ton, but he said he probably has more dirt experience than most. And he's way down at 35-1, plus 850 for top 3, plus 190 for a top 10. He's been good this year. I know those tracks are completely different, but if I'm looking for somebody down that I kind of enjoyed the quote from, it gave me a little bit of confidence in him. It's most likely these are not going to race anything like the midgets or the sprint cars. So somebody that has experience racing on dirt with a heavier car, I would say they would have a little bit of advantage. So I'd look for Alex Bowman to have a good finish.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why, as I mentioned, we're seeing Stuart Friesen as the 6th favorite overall. The third expert, yet he's full-time truck series, so he's racing heavier vehicles here. I don't know how much he's done on dirt with a heavier car, though, as you said. But I think that's an excellent point to bring up. Rocky, once again, Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com, Andy Lang and myself at WagerTalk.com. Rocky, who's somebody else you're looking at here? Anybody else you want to touch on? A long shot, a favorite? What are you thinking?
A long shot, maybe. Tyler Reddick. He's at 16-1. He finished a very solid 4th in his last race here in Bristol. He's been mentioned as having some dirt track experience as well. So if you mix that in, look out for Tyler Reddick this weekend. Maybe sprinkle a little bit on a top 10 finish there.
Yeah, and by the way, the top 10 odds are interesting because I'm looking at Kyle Larson is at minus 560 to top 10. I mean, so some of these favorites are really pricey. Bell's like 1-3. Then with Dillon and those guys on down, you get about even money. You're starting to get some plus money. But yeah, I mean, Kyle Larson is priced into perfection basically at minus 560. And by the way, we talked about Bristol and the dirt combination. I mentioned Kyle Busch having the best driver rating, 5 out of 6 top 5s. Kyle Larson, the 2nd best average driver rating, even though he missed last year. He's been top 5 2 of the last 4 races here. Logano, the 3rd best average rating, 2 top 5s. And Chase Elliott also 2 top 5s and 6. He's actually got the 4th best rating. Clint Boyer, Andy, your boy. Clint Boyer was 5th. And I was hoping just for you that he might return to the dirt track. He actually has, from the Midwest, is actually a good dirt racer. I was surprised he actually wasn't running this week. We might get him out of the booth for you, but that is not the case. He will be announcing with Jeff Gordon. But Clint Boyer, but Blaney 6th. Kevin Harvick, the 7th best Bristol finish. And then Keselowski, Hamlin, and Kurt Busch. Andy, anybody else you want to mention before we get to some head-to-heads? Any long shot favor? What do you think?
No, let's get to head-to-heads. Let's give out some picks.
Do it. Hit me with something. Formula One time.
Yeah. So I saw Kevin Dolan release a Formula One video, and I was like, oh my gosh, somebody else that does Formula One. I haven't really done much with Formula One, and then this year people asked if I could do some more Formula One content. So I'm going to include my Formula One plays in my NASCAR packages. So if you want any Formula One plays, you can get that. But Kevin Dolan is taking Formula One, the bull by the horns. He's doing complete packages with everything. I saw the video and reached out to him, and we are going to try and do some content together on Formula One. We want to bring this money-making sport to the masses. So I will sprinkle Lewis Hamilton to win at plus 160. Red Bull has been very fast in tire testing session. Verstappen was fast in practice 1 and practice 2. I'm not totally buying it. Mercedes never shows their hand preseason, and they never show it in practice. In fact, Hamilton was 0.5 of a second slower in P1, and all of a sudden he's 0.2 slower in P2. He's creeping up there. And last year at this same event, if you look at how the race finished, on paper, Verstappen finished 1.5 seconds behind Hamilton. You're thinking, oh, that's good. That's because the race ended on a caution. Hamilton was 17 seconds ahead of Verstappen when the yellow flag came out. So Hamilton dominated this race last year. And if you remember, this was the Romain Grosjean race where dude was lucky to be alive. One of the most incredible wrecks I've ever seen in Formula One. I'm not totally buying the Red Bull dominance just yet. Verstappen's teammate was not very fast. I think Mercedes is waiting for the race to unfold. It wouldn't surprise me if they snuck onto the pole. So I think getting plus 160 is great value. I'll take a little bit, not a huge bet, just a little bit on Hamilton to win.
I like it, a little Formula One. And once again, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, and then Kevin Dolan, as he mentioned, WagerTalk.com as well. And Kevin's got a full season Formula One, basically almost half price, I believe, right now. It's a nice discount. And he's got a big 4-pack also, as you were saying, for this weekend's Formula One. That's Kevin Dolan. He also does basketball. It's on NBA Tip-Off with him today on Friday here on WagerTalk. And Andy Lang, myself, Steve Merril, Kevin Dolan, all at WagerTalk.com. And then, of course, the man, Rocky Atkinson, at SportsMemo.com. And Rocky, I know you're still digging into this race. We're going to look at practice, qualifying, everything, and you'll have your best bets up this Sunday. But any head-to-head you want to give out free here on the show for the Bristol Dirt Race for all the viewers here on Friday evening?
Yeah, I don't have a head-to-head. Yeah, like you said, there's still a lot of information I'm waiting on to finalize my handicapping for Sunday. But I do have a play against, and we're going to play against Martin Truex Jr. Truex Jr. self-admitted that he sucks at Bristol. He has no wins, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10 finishes in 30 races here. His average finish is 20.7 at this track. Over the past 3 years, his average finish is even worse at 22.3 in those 6 races. He has no top 5 or top 10 finishes. This is not a good track for Martin Truex Jr. Like Andy said earlier, he quoted Truex as saying, this is not his track. Sprinkle some dirt on it. I mean, it's kind of like Bubba Wallace. He got to get better, right? But I'm going to look to play against Truex this weekend.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I'm looking at his stats now. The last 7 races there, he's been better than 9th in the stage only 1 time out of 14 stages. So crazy. He doesn't start well and he hasn't finished. So, yeah, I guess the only hope is that maybe he becomes really good because there's dirt all of a sudden. But I think there's some better dirt drivers, as we've discussed on the show. So we mentioned it earlier, and Rocky's on it, fade Truex. So we'll see when these head-to-heads come out. But Truex is a guy that also could be overpriced just because he has a big name, but he has not been good at Bristol. One other thing I wanted to point out, the Penske cars, if you look at past history, have been very strong. Logano, Blaney actually has the second most laps led, I believe, after Kyle Busch and Keselowski. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Penske does, who I think has been the strongest team overall for over a year now. We'll see how the dirt affects them. But they have been pretty strong here at Bristol. But none of those guys are in the top right now for being a dirt race. So Penske will be a team to keep a close eye on this Sunday. And once again, they're calling for heavy rain Saturday night into Sunday. Most likely the race, I think, will be postponed till Monday. But whenever we get it in, there's some good value here with wagering opportunity. Rocky Atkinson.com, Andy Lang, Wager.com will have their best bets for NASCAR. Andy also is including Formula One as an added bonus. And our colleague Kevin Dolan has Formula One up right now at WagerTalk.com as well. And I've got March Madness, #1 in college basketball this season, 69-46, 73 return on it. I've got 6 best bets for Saturday and Sunday Sweet 16 action ready right now, also at WagerTalk.com. And a quick reminder of the Twitter handles, Rocky Atkinson at Rocketman Sports, Andy Lang, Bump Sports, and myself, Steve Merril, at Steve Merril, 2 R's, 1 L on Twitter. And please subscribe. We are so close. I don't know if we've hit 70,000 yet or not. I didn't check the counter today, but we were just a couple hundred away last night. Let's keep getting more subscribers here. We're so close to 70,000 here on Wager Talk TV, and that helps us continue to bring you this content free each and every day. We're about 200 to 300 away, and our producer, Chris Allen's telling me he wants to get to 70,000 or he doesn't get tonight. So we're going to have to get there. The man needs some sleep. I've seen him. And also don't forget to comment below, like, and subscribe to this channel, as I said, and let us know your top three. Let us know what you think about the dirt race, as I want to hear your top three predictions each and every week, but especially this week with Bristol. Thanks for viewing. As always, thanks for joining us. Be sure to check out WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, and also check out WagerTalk TV here each and every day for great free content. Best of luck this week and enjoy the race, and we'll talk to you soon here on Life in the Fast Lane.